Hi, StreetStar 2013, Tony Basil here. Behind me is a picture of the Lockers, the group I put together with Don Campbell in 1973. It was based on a dance he created in 1970, originally called the Campbell Lock, now also known as locking. StreetStar, I know you're going to have a great competition this year, and I'm so sorry I'm not going to be there to see all the brilliant dancing in your whacking competition. Competitors, dance from your hearts, like the originals did. And speaking of the originals, here are some pictures of the great LA dancers whose individual styles, woven together, created the dance style you will be battling in the whacking competition. From a rehearsal of my 1977 ABC TV pilot, here are Andrew Frank, Arthur Golf, Billy Star Estrada, and Tinker Toy. We met and became great friends in 1974. They danced in my Hollywood shows at the Roxy and the Fox Venice Theater in 1976 and 1977. Also, Don Campbell-Lock Campbell, Shaba-Doo, and Greg Campbell-Lock Jr. from the Lockers were featured in those shows, plus a cast of 20, including ballet dancers, singers, and a live orchestra. They all continued to dance with me in my 80s pop videos, TV specials, and throughout infinity. I am influenced by all these dancers. I would like to say, one of the most memorable pictures in my mind of these dancers was when they would pose together, working the beat at the Paradise Ballroom in Hollywood on Highland Boulevard to Papa Was a Rolling Stone. I never saw a circle, a cipher, or a battle. They danced individually around the club, driven by the music or making beautiful pictures and poses with each other, but never against each other. It just was not the style of the day. I think it's so important to mention two other people that you don't hear enough about, Lamont Peterson and Mickey Lord. They have contributed heavily to the very early years of LA posing and the development of punking and whacking. In 1970, I was hanging out with Lamont. The go-go era was over, and I was trying to catch up on some of the street dance styles after being away in Europe. The popular dances at the time were the bump and the funky chicken, but he also introduced me to his two favorite dances, the runaway and to posing. He spoke of Mickey Lord, a friend, an East Coast dancer who flew back and forth from New York to LA, and they would together trade styles. They would pollinate the gay dance scene and the communities on both coasts with new steps. You have to realize there was no Soul Train yet. That wouldn't happen until September of '71. No internet, no MTV. Nobody owned anything they could film with. Dancers only got their information in person from clubs at night, and there were no cell phones for communication. So it was like a stab in the dark to show up on the right night in the right club at the same time. That was in 1970. In the year 2000, someone handed me a picture of Andrew Frank with Mickey Lord. I share it with you, performing at a fashion show dated 1982. Wow, we are indeed a family of dancers, and eventually we all find each other. So let's go back to Lamont. He always knew I loved new dances. One day in 1970, pre-Soul Train, when we were hanging out, Lamont said to me, you know, there is this guy, Don Campbell, at Trade Tech College, who has made up a dance called the Campbell Lock that you might be interested in. Yes, he did. Yes, it was Lamont. And I said, yeah, let's find him. He said he doesn't go to the same clubs that Don went to. Don went to the straight clubs. Lamont went to the gay clubs. So we set out for the straight clubs in parts of LA I'd never been to. We looked for months. Then one night in a club called Osco's, I can only describe as a tornado, blew through the side door. I had not seen anyone dance like that since James Brown. Lamont said, that's Don Campbell. Then, as quickly as Don had appeared, he disappeared out that side door, gone. About 2 months later, Soul Train premiered on national television. Lamont also danced on that show, and he told me after taping on Thursdays, they all went to a club called the Citadel. I went to the Citadel that Thursday, and, well, the rest became our history. Now, the reason you don't know a lot about Lamont Peterson is he only danced on Soul Train in the very early years. He did partner the great Soul Train dancer Pat Butterfly Davis for a brief time. In 1972, the Broadway choreographer-director Michael Bennett was having auditions in LA for a show he was writing with John Phillips from the Mamas and the Papas. I sent Lamont down because I thought he might be right for one of the roles. That show never materialized, but Michael remembered him. And in 1973, Michael called me from New York and said if I could find Lamont and get him on a plane to New York, he had a perfect role for him in his new Broadway show. Oh yeah, I drove down to South LA and got Lamont on a plane the next day. On March 18th, 1973, Lamont opened up on Broadway as Lamont de Fontaine in Michael Bennett's musical Seesaw, in a silver suit featured in his own musical number called Sparkle. And oh, just in case you don't recognize the name, Michael Bennett, he went on to create one of the most famous Broadway musicals ever, A Chorus Line. You know, I want to thank Lamont for his friendship and his inspired, brilliant dancing, for the bump, for the poses, for the runaway, and for his intuition that I might be interested in this guy called Don Campbell Lock Campbell and his new dance called the Campbell Lock, because it changed my life. And 6 other guys who would become the Lockers in 1973, and it changed the face of dance. Oh, thank you, Lamont. Lamont, thank you so much.